Hi guys, it is me, Miss Cram, and I am going to talk to you right now about slope-intercept form. So it should be a little bit of review for you guys. Most ninth grade students that I've talked to seem to remember y equals mx plus b, right? Sometimes you don't remember why you remember it, but that formula tends to kind of stick in your head. So if I'm looking at y equals mx plus b, the first thing I want you to remember is that it is a linear function. We are talking about things that are just in a line, right? Like straight, no curves, no bends, straight line, okay? Now, in this line, the m value is your slope. So the higher the slope is, the more the line is going to be like straight up and down, right? So this is a pretty steep, a pretty high value of a slope, right? And as the slope gets lower, it gets a little bit flatter, all right? So that's how the slope is affected. Sometimes it even goes the other direction, right? So we've got that going on with the slope. With the y-intercept, that number, right, this b value, so if it's +2, it hits the y-axis at 2. If this is -5, it hits the y-axis at -5. All right, so we're going to play around with that a little bit in Desmos later. But just to remind you, some notes about graphs in general. You always read a graph from the left side to the right side, always left to right, just like you would read a book. So as I read always, I read the A first, right? So I go left to right, you read a graph the same way. That's really important when I ask, is the graph going up or is it going down, decreasing? You're always looking from left to right. They always represent actual things going on, which we've talked about and we've worked with a little bit. For example, the women racing, right? We had a scatter plot showing the race times for women. We also looked at that graph with the man going up and down the slide. And so we were measuring his height at his waist compared to the time going by. Okay, so that's important to realize that graphs aren't just taken out of thin air. They actually are trying to represent a story and they can help predict things in the future, even if they haven't happened. So, an example of that is how much you're going to get paid if you know you make like $20 an hour. So, you work 1 hour, you get $20. You work 2 hours, $40, right? So, I could predict, even if I haven't worked for 10 hours, I could predict how much money I'll make in 10 hours based on how much money I get every single hour, or that linear graph if I were to graph it. All right, so that is a refresher. The next thing we're going to do is go to Desmos, and this time we are not going into an activity. We are just going to desmos.com right here, and we're going to click Graphing Calculator. All right, so there are cool things you can do here. You can press this plus sign, and you can either make a table, right? So if I gave you points for a table, like your assignment in the slides today, you can just type in whatever the points are, right, in that table, and it shows up right here, right? This point is 0, 1, just like I put in my table. Now, for what I want to do, I actually don't need a table. I want to put in slope-intercept form graphs. So I'm just going to click X. And let me just put in y equals X, all right? And for those of you that remember, there's actually a coefficient to X that's invisible, right? And that invisible number is 1. So see how putting that 1 there didn't change anything, right? It's always there. It's just invisible. And let's say I want this line to go through the y-axis at 2. So I'm just going to put +2. Okay. All right. So now what happens if I make this slope, bigger? So think in your mind what's going to happen, and I'll show right here. Y equals 5x plus 2. So everything else stays the same except the slope goes from a 1, right? And you can see that this line, it's kind of steep, but then the red line gets really steep, like a lot steeper. I would much rather climb this hill, the black line, than try to go up. You'd almost need to like be a rock climber to go up that red line. All right, now let's see what happens when I make the slope smaller. Let's say half. 1/2 x plus 2. Now we get a blue line. And you notice I have the same y-intercept, so it still goes through the y-axis at 2. But this blue line, that would be a little bit easier to walk. It's not quite so steep. All right. And the last one I'll do is, what if that slope was 0? 0x plus 2. Okay. And if you notice, when there's no slope, it's just straight across. It's completely horizontal. All right, so those are kind of cool. And I could do some really interesting noticings and wonderings. But what I want to show you now is how to take a screenshot and put that in a Google Doc. All right. So first, you guys are going to go over to your Google Classroom. I need to go to my Google Classroom. And you will go to the classwork section. So I'll just go to section 14, classwork section. And I don't have your post up yet, but if you go to the post for today, which I think it should be the 30th, right? You go to that post and it would be right here. It would be added to your Google Classroom link. So there would be a Word document. You just click on that document when it's there, and it will bring you to a Word doc. Now, in the slides, I told you to title it with last name, first name, Desmos, and the date. So I'm going to do that. Desmos. And today's date, I think, is the 30th. All right. Okay. So I am going to take a screenshot of my Desmos. Whoops. Actually want to have a little bit more precise. So on Chromebooks, you can just Google. It's pretty easy to say, how do I take a screenshot of, and if I were doing it, I would say of my MacBook, of Chromebook, and they have pretty simple instructions there. You might even be able to ask your classmates. All right, so here I'm just taking a snapshot. And once I do that, once I take the screenshot, I can go into my Word document and go to Insert, Image, and I'm going to upload it from my computer. It usually goes into your desktop. All right, so it's this top one. I just took it right now, 617. And there is my Desmos work. All right. Now you're going to have a different problem set. So look in your slides. It's going to look a little different than what we did here. But then you're going to write your noticings. I noticed, and, give me a few noticings. And questions. I wondered. Okay. So write about 3 to 5 sentences. Give some good noticings, wonderings, maybe what you learned, a little bit of a reflection there. And that will be your assignment, or at least you're going to use what we did here. And it's very similar to what your assignment is in the slides. All right, so read the directions. Let me know if you have any questions. So we did a little bit of review on Slope-Intercept form, And this is a good tutorial for when you come to your assignment today in the slides. All right, thank you. Bye.